Buy yourself a gun. What? Gun. What? Like a handgun for personal protection. If somebody tries to mug you. What? What if your government tries to throw you in a can? What? You're gonna want a shotgun. Oh. What? An automatic rifle and a lot of ammo. Gun? Yeah, gun.
We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They'll burn you out like you Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. 10-footed cops in riot gear gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They gave your money to the banksters. They stole your pension funds. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta drag them through the streets.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Tuesday. It's Primer Time. My name is Michael.
And I'm Nicholas. How are you doing?
Nick, good to hear you tonight. How you been, man?
I've been doing well. Weather is it's a little nasty and gray, but it's a not bit better than Texas, that's for sure.
I'll tell you what, it's a little bit hot here today. It said feels like 99, and I don't believe that. It felt more like 110. It was pretty moist. Moist and warm.
I don't think you feel less than 110 in Texas till like early December.
Yeah, really, no kidding. No kidding. I'm all for the onset of global cooling and all that.
Yeah, I think that's a seasonal thing.
Bring me some icebergs.
If I could, we're going to only get up to about 75 by the middle of the week. And if you say the words, we're only going to get up to 75, you know you've lived in the southern U.S. for too long.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So, you have any kind of experiences with firearms or firearms accessories or anything like that this week?
Actually, I made a couple of purchases. And
good for you.
The never-ending project of the AR in 223 Wild is coming along nicely. I was on a online retailer, 2 different sites, and was able to pick up a first item of business was to pick up the carbine length gas tube. Ran me about $16, but it does come with a roll pin, whereas some of them don't, so that was nice. And also with that, I picked up a tube of anti-seize lubricant. Make sure that when I'm putting stuff in, that the threads don't melt to themselves. Second purchase was a armorer's wrench, and along with that, I decided to go ahead and splurge and pick up a polymer magazine from Magpul.
Now, this polymer magazine from Magpul, is it a first generation, second generation, third generation?
It is.
And for people who may not understand, there is a difference in the generations of the magazine. I believe the third generation now has a window in it. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the order that I placed was for a Generation 2, and it's got a different follower, but it does not have a window.
Okay. And are you in under $12 on that item?
I came in at 13.
Okay.
So
that's probably on the high side for that right there. I'm seeing those second generation PMags running around right now for about $9.99 to about $12.
Right. Yeah, but in order to get the good shipping, I had to go with that one.
I understand that. Sometimes it it makes sense just to spend a little bit more, and then get the $3 UPS shipping upgrade. Then,
That's
right
right.
at your door, no BS at the post office.
That's right. You got to make up your mind that you're gonna give a little bit to get a little bit. It's not
That's right.
It's not a proposition where you're going to come out ahead. You just got to watch out for the good sales, and when you get them, you jump on them when you can find them.
That's right. Also, the making the absolute best price online does not always translate to the best deal.
Now,
a lot of places are rough with their shipping. I mean, they make profit on their shipping, and just because you ordered it today does not mean it ships tomorrow. Some of the online retailers take their sweet time. One that I'm actually kind of on the fence with this company. I lean more towards enjoying their service than being mad at them, but they do have their tendency to kind of anger me with their really slow shipping, and that's Palmetto State Armory. They've got great prices, and it appears that they have just about one of everything, but it's 2 weeks before it gets even remotely into their shipping mindset.
Well, boy, we have a winner. Because one of the companies that I did not get the PMag from Palmetto State. I did pick up the Armorer's wrench from there, but I picked up the Armorer's wrench from Brownells, and actually I have the invoice right in front of me, and I picked it up for $12.30. So
that's a really good deal on that Armorer's wrench, because I see those at gun shows, and they usually run $35 and up, $35 to about $60.
Right. Now, the reviews on it were mixed. Some folks were saying it worked absolutely fine, had no problems with it. Other guys said that it didn't fit the slot for a half-inch torque wrench. But I think for the money, it's all steel construction. It should work out just fine, and it's actually got the nut, or I should say the wrench for the barrel nut, and then it's also got the wrench for the stock as well. So I can go ahead and attach, both things to specs and not have to worry about, just using the wrong tool for the job. What I will say is the hard part is finding the torque wrench.
Now, I would say that you can find a torque wrench fairly cheap at House of Chinese Tools, and I'm sure that they're flown near you because they're
now we got no House of Chinese Tools out here.
You Tools, and anybody who's not aware, that's called Freight, and there might be a Northern Tool. That's another Chinese importer. They specialize in kind of thumb tools, and what I mean by thumb tools, dog. Okay. Decision. If you need a good, cheap, heavy hammer, that's the place to go. You need a torque wrench, which really isn't all that high-tech.
Yeah, what I'm looking for is more along the line, something that I can pick up at a auto parts store, maybe a Pep Boys, maybe something like that. But I'll tell you, you can't find one at a Home Depot, and even if you could, I probably wouldn't go there because they can't keep control of your customer information. I think the biggest problem with them right now.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. They've got a massive data.
They got hacked, right?
Yeah, they've got a massive data breach right now that is initial reports are saying it's even bigger than Target. So if you've got an online retailer like any of the big outdoor stores that has that happen, you're going to see some blowback from the shooting community about it. Kind of like what you saw from some of the online retailers when we had the big run on ARs.
That's interesting. They up this Home Depot and their lack of security with the information. There's a gun store in New York that really just had some issues. They have been accused of selling illegal firearms, which in New York that could be almost anything anymore.
Yeah, that would be a 1911.
It could be with an 8-round magazine. Absolutely, that's illegal.
That it
You're
is.
only allowed 7. You know,
That's right, because that 8th round magic bullet.
that's right. Yeah. So this is in Albion, New York, in Orleans County, and Joseph Palumbo, who co-owns the Albion Gun Shop, pretty much tells the story about a different kind of hacking, and just state-enforced hacking. And this actually doesn't involve a computer. They do this the old-fashioned way. They send in a SWAT team. Basically had to give up all his customer list the last 2 years to the Orleans County Sheriff's Department. And he was forced to do this under the threat of a SWAT team raid.
I'll tell you what. You look at some of the gross overstepping of bounds and duties by bureaucracies at the state level. It's scary. If you're a firearms owner in the state of California, and if you've ever at any point in your life had some kind of instability, or as far as what the state would consider mental instability, you're liable to have a visit from armed agents of the state to permanently confiscate your firearms.
And instances of instability can be something as simple as
your
marriage.
Neighbor says that he doesn't like the way you look at them.
That could be.
Yeah,
that could be.
Yeah, and it's a funny thing. I mean, I had a few years ago, I had the displeasure of being stationed in the People's Republic of California, and worked in a recruiting station where we had folks from all over the Army come out to work and recruit new soldiers. And one of my coworkers actually worked in San Francisco proper. He wanted to do the right thing. He showed up at his local police department and said, "Hey, I have a Franke Spas 15 shotgun." And
the Spas.
Yeah.
Spas. Cool. Yeah, that's a scary looking son of a bitch.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's got a heat shield and a shoulder thing that goes up. And,
you can't have that. So yeah, he took that.
That's a scary one.
He took that into the police department, and the police department said, "Yep, we'll register it, and you'll never get it back."
And with their no compensation for.
Absolutely not. It was an illegal firearm upon importation to the state.
How much jail time?
I didn't get any jail time because he voluntarily surrendered it, is what they said.
What a deal.
So if anybody's thinking of going to California, make sure you voluntarily surrender your firearms as soon as you cross the border to avoid jail.
That's just one of those stories that turns my stomach. It really does. Somebody trying to do the right thing, trying to follow the law, and he just gets buddy smacked for it.
Oh, certainly, but it's not the only example. We just talked about New York. New York State is at the forefront of anti-firearm legislation in a knee-jerk reaction. You look at, we just talked about the ban on firearms that have a capacity of a 7-round magazine or greater. You take a look at the 1911 is illegal with an 8-round magazine in the state of New York. There was a Army Sergeant Major who had just retired, and he was taking some classes at a shooting range, forgot that he had a firearm in his car, drove through New York State, actually tried to enter Canada. He was detained going into Canada, and they said that he was trying to import an illegal firearm. He's got a court date pending in Canada for that. So it's like I said, it's not just the United States. There are certain elements within the different bureaucracies of governments on both ends of the North American continent, whether it be Canada or Mexico, that says you as an individual are not authorized or not allowed to have a firearm.
Your firearm scares me.
That's right. And God forbid if it's black.
Oh, Jesus. It's always the black ones that do it.
Tell you what, that's pretty racist.
I truly believe that gun control does have its roots in racism.
Well, certainly. You take a look back at almost any totalitarian dictatorship, and you see what it is that they do to get the masses under control. And it is rooted in whether it's racism per se, or whether it's based on affluence, or even just education. And that, to me, in the United States alone, is one of the things that you see it time and time and time again. You look at these Ivy League educated folks that seem to inhabit almost all of the Northeast United States, and they think that because of their education, that they have the right to tell you that you, because you may not have that same Ivy League education, are too dumb to hold on to your firearms. You may be what's called a bitter clinger.
I'll tell you what, you're the dummy if you give up your firearm.
Oh, certainly. And you could look at any point in time, and when a population is disarmed, you no longer have a citizenry. You have folks that are going to just basically have to kowtow to the whim of those who didn't give up their guns.
You got to be under the thumb. If you're not under the thumb, you are a loose cannon and you scare the hell out of people.
Right. Well, I've got a question for you. Did you hear about the latest conviction for a firearms offense? Actually, what it came down to was a murder charge that was upheld in court based on an individual who was at his home, and there was an auto accident. There was a woman who got out. I believe this is, if I'm not right, I believe this was in Houston.
No, I believe it was in Michigan.
Well, it wasn't Michigan. That was going to be my second.
I believe it was Michigan.
Right, that was going to be my second guess. So an individual had a knock on his door from a drunken woman who had just been in a car accident, and he shot her on his porch. Jury came back and returned a guilty verdict. So he's got the murder trial concluded, and they're going to be getting ready to do sentencing if they haven't done it already.
I did hear that he got 17 years is what I heard he got.
Yeah, I mean, tell you what, there's castle doctrines in places, and like I said, if he was truly at risk, I think a cooler head might have prevailed in this situation, and unfortunately, someone lost her life. But I think that for that individual who is now going to be sentenced to jail, I think he's going to have a lot of time to reflect on the things that he could have done, because no longer does he have the opportunity to be with his family, and he's going to be sitting in a jail cell. Certainly because in Michigan there's quite a few legislators that tend to follow that train of thought where if you're not a hunter in the Upper Peninsula, well, you're just as dangerous as a gangbanger in Detroit.
Right. Well, that's kind of interesting that happened in Michigan, and just, in one of the biggest cities in Michigan, the police departments are open for less than 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
They have days where the sheriff's department is closed. You can't go into the sheriff's department. The situation in the Detroit area is bad enough to where officers are paying for their own ammunition, which becomes a problem, I think, from a bunch of legal standpoints, because these guys are buying it on their own. Who's to stop them from, using a different type of...
Yeah, I think that what you're seeing now in terms of the legal action going after firearms owners, it's getting to a fever pitch in some places. Some places, the welfare of the people is at the forefront of, say, like a district attorney's mind, and you tend not to see a lot of those charges come in places in the southern United States or even in some parts of the western United States. But you'll see places like the Pacific Northwest, the upper tier, certainly the Northeast, and even the nation's capital in Chicago. You're not in for a gun-friendly or firearm-friendly environment. If you're a firearms owner out there, you've got to be twice as careful.
Well, USA Today, which is probably the nation's biggest fluff newspaper, recently ran a story extolling the virtues of home protection and self-defense. And they actually advocate using wasp spray and your car alarm as
as home defense. And nowhere in the, I'd say it was about 12 paragraphs long, nowhere in the article does it once mention a firearm or your inherent right to defend yourself.
Well,
A firearm.
that's certainly similar or akin to the legislator. I think she was from Colorado that challenged a recent victim of rape, telling her that she was not considered to be competent with a firearm should she find herself in a situation where she was getting physically assaulted.
Well, right. During the legislative process in Colorado just about a year ago. Is that correct?
Right.
And wasn't her recommendation for the defense was to either vomit or urinate upon your attacker?
Exactly, and upon yourself.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess that even a 22 short's a whole hell of a lot better than a handful of puke.
Yeah, there's folks out there that get off on that kind of stuff, and if that individual's out there doing that to begin with, probably not going to faze them.
Yeah, that's not. Smith & Wesson does not make the Model 629 urinator.
Yeah, they certainly
do. The 629 44 Magnum is what they make. Our society is a polite society, and you put a bullet into a perpetrator's chest, there's a good chance he's going to turn around and go the opposite direction and stop his criminal ways.
Well, I'll tell you this: in my locality, in my state, we are fortunate enough to have open carry. You have no permit necessary. You can carry as long as you're legally authorized to own a firearm. But
that is a beautiful thing.
It is. But when you go in terms of being at a institution of higher learning, such as one of the local universities that we have here, that's in the Atlantic Coast Conference, they've got these blue lights all over campus. And it's been a while since I've been to a university. Last one was University of Arizona, but I've seen them there too. And these are the rape prevention lights. So basically, instead of giving you the opportunity to defend yourself with a firearm should you need it, the prevailing wisdom is to go ahead and wait until you're being followed, and then find one of these blue lights to call for a policeman,
and then flip the switch rapidly.
Right. I fail to see
that kind of reminds me of those placebo street light buttons in New York. Make people feel like they're doing something so they don't get all angry and cranky. They've got some input into the situation.
Right. I'll tell you what. Some folks, they serve as examples for others. And it's funny. You hear horror stories every day about the folks who were out there that were unable to defend themselves. You might have heard of the young lady from Tennessee, Holly Bobo. Her remains were just found.
I did. I'm not familiar with the Holly Bobo situation, but if this is something that was a Nancy Grace telethon kind of an issue,
I'm sure Nancy Grace did her thing on it, because Nancy Grace seems to find everybody that happens to be abducted, and that's her claim to fame. But no, they found this young lady's remains 10 miles away from the home of a sex offender who they believe was responsible for her death. And not to speculate and call out attention that this individual didn't have a means to defend herself, but what if she did? What if she had the means to defend herself? Story might have a different ending.
There would be no story, because if she defended herself, that would be it. Case closed. End of story. On to the next football game. Next whatever story that grabs your attention. The news will not focus on the fact that somebody defended themselves successfully with a firearm. That does not fit the national narrative.
No, certainly not, and especially by the bureaucracies that we have running the show right now. Because I think that if anybody's been paying attention to the news lately, they will have seen that the president has decided that he is going to put off many different pieces of his own agenda to wait until the elections happen. So you can't just sit there and say, well, this guy just doesn't want to be president anymore. I think he's acting on orders from other folks, and those other folks could be the FBI, where nobody's elected. You have bureaucrats that stay there for 20, 30 years at a time. Whereas a president, he's lucky if he gets 8.
Yeah, well, he's lucky. We're certainly not lucky whenever they get 8.
Yeah.
I can't think of one that had 2 terms. I can't think of one that had 1 term in my lifetime that's been worth 2 wet farts.
Yeah.
Seriously, there's no difference between them. They all have the same exact donors. They all have the same exact fundraising attendees.
Well, certainly.
There's no.
When you get the NRA to give Harry Reid a positive rating just because he contributes to opening up ranges in Nevada, I think you have a fundamental chasm when it comes to what the organizations are that are supposed to be standing up for our rights.
I think the NRA doesn't necessarily stand up for the rights of gun owners, and I'm not going to say that it's a political tool of the manufacturers, but it does seem that every time that the NRA has had some sort of input into legislation that passes, it further puts the screws to the American public. The NRA and Smith & Wesson were they were quite instrumental in helping the 1994 crime bill pass, and that really didn't do anything to affect crime or crime statistics or anything. Mainly what that did was to keep the Chinese weaponry, the Chinese firearms off the market, which was a great big protectionary move for the manufacturers in the United States because, well, unlike every other product from China, minus the iPod, Chinese firearms work, and they work every single time. Chinese firearms are 100% reliable. Chinese ammunition was 100% reliable. You remember back in the day, we used to buy a box of Chinese 9mm, 50 rounds, 115 grain, just full metal jacketed Plinkin stuff, and it was $3.99 a box.
Yeah, you can't find that anywhere anymore.
No, you can't. You can't even buy like decent 22 for $3.99 a box. I mean, CCI Stinger is, I think that's $7.99 a box right now. CCI Mini Mags are $8.99 a box. The only kind of 22 that's even in the $3 range is probably going to be like Thunderbolt or Golden Bullet or Blazer or something like that. That's just ultra dirty with an exposed lead bullet.
Right. Like I said, I'm starting to look into picking up those 223 Remington or the 5.56 now that I have a rifle that can fire either, and I'm surprised at the prices that are being charged just even for 223.
It's coming near to 40 cents a round.
It's getting up there, and the problem is that you almost have to buy in bulk in order to get anything of value.
Oh, absolutely! It makes no sense to buy a box of 20.
Yeah,
unless that's what you're going at to shoot right then and there. The box of 20 is a losing proposition because you're coming in at $1 a piece or more.
Right, and you can get some of the bargain. We'll just talk 223 Remington right now. I'm seeing on different sites you can get 500 rounds, $115, but it's Wolf.
And Wolf has its place. Wolf isn't the right ammunition for everybody with their new AR-15 that they bought in the last year for $1,200. Even though it's like before this crisis happened, it was a $499 AR-15.
Right.
And they wonder why it doesn't like Wolf. Well, your rifle wasn't made for that. Your rifle was made for American manufactured brass cased ammunition, and well, that's not what Wolf is.
Right.
And to be honest with you, Wolf works great for me. I've never had any kind of problems with any Wolf. Of course, I haven't shot a whole lot of it in 5.56 or 22. Actually, they don't make 5.56. They only make 223 Remington. I've only fired a couple of rounds through that, and it's seemed to work. I guess you could call it a little bit dirtier. It's got a different smell when it discharges. But 9mm, I've shot thousands of rounds of that in 9mm, and it has never once failed. Wolf shotgun shells, same situation. I pump literally thousands of them through all sorts of different 12 gauges, and they've always worked.
Yeah. And like I said, you just got to find the ammunition that your firearm likes to eat. And you know what that means? You need to spend more time on the range.
That's right. Like we used to say many times, the best accessories you can buy for your rifle would be the sling, the extra magazines, and lots of ammunition. You don't need a Hello Kitty cup holder that mounts on your Picatinny rail. You don't need a rainbow assortment of lasers and flashlights on the front end of your gun. The GPS or the iPhone hookup or the Bluetooth attachment, so your magazine can send you a text message saying that you're down to your last 3 rounds or something. You don't need any of that stuff.
Because that's what windows are for on the PMags.
That's why you should count when you shoot.
Yeah. That's not a that's a learned trait. You don't necessarily have that right off the bat.
Right, and that is something that does take a little bit of time behind the butt to get on. I know when I first started shooting, I did not count, but now I count every time.
Yeah,
every time, and I'm aware of what I have. Yeah, exactly. These are just habits you pick up, and these are habits that come with shooting,
right?
With getting out there and actually doing it.
Yeah, and like we said before, Michael, it's one of those things to get out there and shoot. If you've got a firearms collection, you have your one that you like to go out there and shoot. But if it's something where it's a semi-automatic, you literally have to go out there and spend time on the range to build the muscle memory to know, number one, how that firearm even interacts, with you as the shooter, and then with different parts. These AR-15s that are out there now, I mean, they're totally customizable. You can make it into any incantation you want it to do. There's bipods, there's without bipods, there's with foregrips, without foregrips.
It's just amazing how many just different manufacturers of buttstocks for the AR-15 are.
Right, and
I mean,
I couldn't somebody with a A2 style buttstock anymore because it doesn't collapse.
Well, it's not in a video game.
That's true. There's no X button on it.
Well, it's not the weapon that's highlighted in a video game. That big carry handle on the top, well, that's just not it's not modern enough looking.
Oh yeah, and that's one of the things. Being a member of the armed forces, I'll tell you right off the bat, if you ever carry a M4 or an M16 by the carry handle, yeah, you're going to have a non-commissioned officer who will become your worst enemy in a very short amount of time. But you see them; they'll even make the A2 carry handles that have attachments. They go right to a flat top M4, so you can stick with the iron sights that way, or you can remove them to go ahead and put optics on it.
I personally think every rifle should have iron sights because optics have a tendency to fail.
Right, certainly, and not only that, even iron sights have a tendency to have malfunctions, whether it's denting of the sight posts or whether something just malfunctions. You've got to be comfortable, even when you shoulder that firearm, you have to have an idea of where, with just by muscle memory alone, where that muzzle is pointed and where those rounds should impact based on how the weapon feels to you.
Have you done any shooting of any of those of your bolt-action rifles without a scope on them?
Sure do. I've got actually 2 of my bolt-action.
And I would say rifles that have no iron sights. Have you ever just fired the rifle as it comes straight out of the box with no iron sights, no optics, just a plain barrel?
I have 2 of them that are just drilled and tapped for scopes, and yeah, there's a big difference shooting with iron sights versus shooting with a slick barrel.
Do you find that you hit low or you hit high?
Actually, I tend to pull to the right.
I tend to hit low when I am using one of them slip barrels that's got nothing like that. Now, that's not to say that I've done that several times. I mean, I have done it several times. It's not something I do on the regular. It's just was at a friend's house, and he got this new rifle. Hey, let's just see what it does real quick.
Yeah. Were you anticipating a shot and throwing off your breathing? Because if you're shooting low, your breathing tends to be off.
No, I have a feeling that it was just due to the way I was holding it. Without I was looking down the exact same thing you were talking about. It was just drilled and tapped for the rail or for the sight or for the rings, and there was no front sight on it. And I just lined up the bore and tried to do it. And I wasn't a marksman, but I'll tell you, if that would have been a man-sized target at the ranges we were going to, it would have worked.
Oh yeah, certainly anything probably within 50 yards or less. You're as long as you've got a steady grip, a good steady aim, you'll probably hit it. You won't be precise, but you'll hit within a pie plate size target.
Are you finding lots of shooting accessories that would say like targets available in your area? Down here, it seems that everybody and their mother is making metal targets for target shooting, either great big discs or little square plates that hook by chains or something like that, some sort of reactive target.
Right, and I think that's where the focus is. That's the drive that people want, that instantaneous feedback of whether or not they're successful, and that's why you hear, we used to call them the gong targets. Something that gives you an audible clang to let you know whether or not you hit it or not. But what I see a lot of people doing out here actually is, if they decide that they like the Birchwood Casey style shoot and see targets, they'll stick with those. Me personally, I'm a little bit more frugal. I will have no problem going online, going to Google search and pulling up free targets. And there will be plenty of websites that will offer you different types of shooting targets that all it costs you is the ink and the paper in your own printer at home.
That's right, yeah. Something that is overlooked as a potential source of targets are pizza boxes.
Yeah, I was going to say
pizza
boxes, or if you ever do any purchasing from Amazon. Amazon boxes, if you make a large enough order, they send you quite a big box, and it's usually got some of the air cushion packing material in it. Well, I'll tell you what, you take that Amazon box out to the range and you set it up, and you can even go very easy and do a can of white spray paint on it in a circle, and then put a black bullseye in it, and you've got a pretty visible target from a good ways away.
There are pizza box manufacturers now that are actually having targets printed on the box, and I think that's a really neat idea.
I would buy pizza from that organization.
I would totally buy pizza from those people. There's nobody in my area that's doing it yet, but I would almost dare say that the minute that somebody starts doing it, they're going to make a move. Just because there's enough active shooters in my area that it's a resource that would be consumed. They're getting ready to actually open up a shooting range near me.
Oh, that's great.
You can find these guys online, the Utopia Gun Shop. And he's got 400-yard rifle range and out at the maximum. Then he's also going to have a pistol range. He's going to have a selection of ammunition. I'm sure, it's not going to be, it won't be big box store pricing, but, that's what you get when you're out in the sticks and you go to the local range.
Well, you know what they say is, support your local gun shop, buy local, right?
That's right.
So
I'm really excited about this coming in because my area needs it. Because I've recently found out that the place where I enjoy shooting, my dump, which has just a wonderful selection of crappy targets to blow up, that may not be the best place for me to shoot.
Right. Well, actually, I came up big. I did a little bit of casting some lines out there, doing my face-to-face, and I was able to actually find an individual that's out here probably about 30 miles from where I live. But the individual has some fowl on her property. She raises different types of chickens, and she's had a couple of her chickens taken lately, and she's wanted me to go out there and shoot the critter that's doing it. We believe it to be a coyote, so I took a couple firearms out there last week, and one of them was the Mossberg 500 in 12 gauge.
How did you like that? That is one of my favorites of all time.
It was great. I'll tell you what. I didn't get to shoot, but I'll tell you what. With number 7 steel shot, whatever would have been in the way of it wouldn't have been in the way of it for very long.
That's right. Now tell me a little bit about this Mossberg. Is it it's the kind with the 5-round magazine or 6-round magazine? Correct?
It's actually it's 8 rounds.
Really? So it's a 590 then?
No, it's 500. It's 700. Yeah.
Okay. So do you have a magazine extension on it?
I think it came with it when I purchased.
Okay. That's what it would be. Because I think a normal 500 has 6-round capacity.
Yeah.
So you got an 8-round magazine. How long is the barrel on that?
26.
26. Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. I do know with the 8-round magazine, that pretty much works out to an even up with the barrel on a 20-inch barrel.
Right.
For those.
Yeah, and the good thing about this, this is I would say it was manufactured probably in 2004, or late 2003, early 2004 when I purchased it, and it has a ported barrel, so that's actually a nice touch to it because it lets off a little bit of the little bit of the recoil, and for me having shoulder surgeries, I'm starting to look at maybe going towards a 20 gauge. But I'll tell you what.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Anything you can do with the 12 gauge, you can definitely do with the 20 gauge.
Yeah, and certainly even if it's something that you want to do like hunting turkeys, they Federal has ammunition out there called turkey thugs for 20 gauge. So you may lose a little bit of the pattern at distance, but you're right. I think wholeheartedly you're going to be able to do whatever you could do with a 12 gauge with a 20 and a heck of a lot less impact to your shoulders.
That's right. Well, as we all get older, certain things take a different toll on your body. I'm really not a fan of shooting some of the lighter 1911s. I really don't like shooting those. They have a tendency to give my thumbs a beating.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily a fan of those. A heavier 1911, not a problem. It's just some of those really light ones I don't like. And I guess it takes everybody, you got to get out there and squeeze the trigger on a couple of them and figure out what you like.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about before. It's your familiarity. You're gonna go a lot farther in terms of having a more pleasurable shooting experience if you're familiar with the firearm. Think back to that first time you ever picked up an unfamiliar firearm, and might have been from an uncle, might have been from a friend. Somebody who may not have been thinking that they're going to bring you in the right way to do it. Maybe somebody was, hey, let's get a laugh out of this one. Somebody that gave you a firearm that you either weren't prepared to fire or you really weren't sure about it. And if you had an unpleasurable time with it, that might sway a person from ever getting back into shooting. So, don't listen to other folks, I guess is what I'm saying, when it comes to what caliber or what size round you should be shooting, whether it's the amount of grains in the bullet or the amount of powder. You got to find that kind of stuff out for yourself, and don't be afraid to do the research by buying a couple different variants of the same type of ammo. Look at something. I can tell you, for example, I had a 7mm Remington Magnum. It was a Savage Model 111, and yeah, I made the big mistake of trying to shoot a box of 20, and I think I made it through round 12, and I basically limped off the thing.
and the rifle was sold not long after that.
Certainly, and I took a $100 loss on it.
Yeah, that happens with some of those items, and some of those items you don't actually take any sort of loss.
Yeah,
but you when you bring up somebody dealing with a first-time shooter and giving them a weapon that they may not be familiar with, or any sort of weapon if they're not familiar with any of them, it brings us into something that we like to stress here, and that's a violation of safety rules.
Yes, sir.
Because somebody who has no idea what this weapon is, whether it's a bolt-action rifle or a shotgun or a handgun or a big heavy Magnum revolver, if they don't have any of the background for this, you put yourself in a real dangerous situation. And how is a person going to be able to follow the 4 rules of gun safety if they don't know what they're doing? And the first rule of gun safety is every firearm is loaded until you physically verify that it is not. And if you're not familiar with it, how are you going to do that?
Well, first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that before you're even handed a firearm, that you go ahead and make sure that you keep the muzzle in the appropriate direction. You don't want to have it.
That's right. That's rule number 2.
That's right.
You don't cover anything with that muzzle that you do not intend to destroy.
Right. And then, like I said, prior to accepting that, you want to make sure that the action is open. From that point, you also check that the safety is engaged. You want to make sure that the magazine is dropped or the cylinder is open or the action is clear. Just making sure that there's nothing in that chamber that's going to discharge.
And when it gets to the discharge situation, look at your target. Make sure you know what your target is, and more importantly, what's beyond your target, because we're going to miss at some point. We won't like to admit it, but we're going to miss. And it was horrible to miss and hit a kid on a bicycle 1.5 miles away.
Yeah, certainly. And it's not even about just, you're going to miss your target. There's, all too often people think about knowing what's beyond your target. Oh, okay, there's trees back there. No, that's not a suitable backstop. Don't ever shoot at something that's skylighted or something that's, providing a sky-based silhouette behind it. Because you're right. Not everybody's going to hit everything that they aim at. And that round, once you fire it, cannot be recalled.
You can't call it back.
That's right.
You cannot bring it back. And that gets to our probably the most important rule. And ladies and gentlemen, keep the booger hook off the bang switch. There are no negligent discharges without a negligent trigger pull.
That's right. Yeah, and you'll hear all the different news media outlets. They go with the patented lie that the gun just went off. Folks, it doesn't happen. Weapons don't discharge unless the trigger is engaged. And like it or not, a lot of people just don't want to take the individual responsibility when it happens to say, yeah, I did it, because they realize that now they're liable for their own actions.
Well, and not only that, but then it also leads to a media firestorm where they use the inappropriate terms of, it was a tragedy, it was an accident, and no, well, it may have been a tragedy, but it wasn't an accident, it was negligence. And
you can look at it the same way as a state trooper would look at it for any kind of collision on the highway. I think that even a lot of the folks that I know that are in law enforcement, and especially state police agencies, will tell you that there are no accidents. There are only collisions.
Oh, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true.
So, yeah. I think that one of the interesting firearms that I'm going to start looking at is a 243 Winchester. You happened to send me one while I was in Germany, and unfortunately I didn't get to shoot it. But I'm going to be looking at putting a optic on it and getting it ready to go out there, maybe for whitetail deer season.
What sort of optic are you looking at putting on that?
Right now, I'm probably going to look towards a 3 to 9 power variable by 40 millimeter lens, and just trying to keep it to where it's something that I could use during daylight hours. Mainly because the 243 Winchester is a very flat shooting round. There's not a lot of rise and fall in the bullet over its trajectory, and you can really use it for precision shooting. Anything that's in that 6 millimeter range, you're really going to have really good terminal ballistics, and the performance is going to be consistent.
Well, I'm glad to see that you're going to get that. I believe that was the Savage.
No, that's a Weatherby Vanguard model. So
Oh, that's right. The
stock.
Weatherby was the 243, right? The Savage was the 308.
Yeah, that's right. That was a Savage Stevens Model 200.
That's right. That's cool. I'm glad you're going to get to use that. Boy, that's been a while back.
Yeah, and there you go. Like I tell you that it's nice to see that the U.S. Postal Service will do everything in their power to make sure that they steal half of what comes with it.
Yeah, that was not too nice, because when we'll just let the people in. I sent you 3 rifles while you were in Germany, and it's totally legal to send them through the post office. People, just do your homework
except if you're in Port Lavaca.
Yeah, that was horrible. But actually, Port Lavaca is where it worked.
Oh, where was it that they decided to make you a piñata?
Yeah, where they made me the training dummy for the afternoon. That was in Victoria at the main post office in Victoria.
Oh, God bless them.
Yeah, that was less than fun, but life goes on.
Sure does. That's why you should always call ahead to the station manager before you bring a firearm to the post office.
That's right. And do that homework and save yourself some shoulder pain, folks.
Yeah. For those of us with bad shoulders to begin with, they won't stop there.
Yeah, no, I felt like I was a victim of failed high school wrestlers.
Yeah, I'll tell you what though. We will give a shout out to the post office director out there in Port Lavaca, who did do the right thing by us, and he took his time and he made sure that we got those firearms out there. Some asshole in Detroit decided we didn't need the scopes, but the firearms themselves made it.
And the case that you came, the case was fairly tampered with. Is that correct?
Yeah, certainly.
I sent you. It was a brand new rifle case.
Right, it was a game winner rifle case. The diamond style faux steel case, and the locks had been pried off. The security tape that you had attached to it with the Port Lavaca post office director had been cut through, and I swear I think the only thing that prevented those rifles from being pilfered was the fact that you had removed the bolts from them when you sent them.
Another government employee. That's the way that one works out, I think.
Yeah. And like I said, I was super excited to receive that Weatherby in 243 because, like I said, I'm a little soft in the shoulders nowadays, and I've actually had work done to some of my old standbys. I had a muzzle brake installed on the 8mm, and it messes with the rifle a little bit, and it certainly doesn't make it any more pleasurable to shoot at a range next to anybody else. It's a little bit louder now.
Oh yeah, the muzzle brake always has a tendency to attenuate the sound, so to speak.
Yeah,
well, it's a good loudener.
Yeah, you're throwing those. You're throwing that gas out to the sides instead of straight in front of you.
I've got a friend with a fairly nice AR-15, and he had a fancy looking muzzle brake on it, and I think that's quite possibly the loudest firearm I've ever fired in my entire life.
Yeah.
Well, we got some 5.56.
We got some folks in chat that wanted to know the Paul Harvey on the tampered with rifle case. So the rest of the story is that since you had to send those firearms to me certified mail, because actually was it registered mail or certified mail? I think it was registered mail.
I don't remember. It was the expensive mail.
Right. I think it was registered.
Signatures. It needed signatures at every stop. Is really what it needed.
Right. Basically, anytime it wasn't in transit, it was under lock and key and it had to be signed for. So, long story short, because it ended up having to go through the military postal service, the U.S. Postal Service said, "Oh, we are free and clear." And so, anybody that knows anything about the military postal service overseas especially, is that it tends not to be those guys that are doing the pilfering. It tends to be the folks working at the airports at San Francisco or LaGuardia or JFK that.
Well, and there's a fair amount in Chicago, and the airport in Detroit also actually is. Was it? Did we figure out it was the airport in Detroit?
Yep, that's what it was. So, unfortunately, the folks in Detroit don't know how to use scope. Certainly not the police department.
I was almost thinking that they just didn't know how to insert those bolts.
Yeah. Well, they would have done it if they could have, but I think we took a good precaution, and it got back to us when we needed it.
Well, I'm still kind of bummed that you never got those scopes, and there was never there's never any kind of remediation on the post office.
No, they certainly did not.
Three decent scopes. That's not cheap.
No, the good optics are not inexpensive, and they certainly did not want to pay the insurance. But conversely, sending you a shotgun from Germany back to the States took all of 45 days.
It took quite a while for it to get there.
That's right.
My shipment to you was there within a week, I think.
Yep.
And your shipment to me, it was coming up on 2 months.
That's right. And you received in the mail a by call side-by-side 12-gauge.
That's right. Now I'm a fan of the side-by-sides and single shots and over-unders. I really like those kind of shotguns.
Yeah, well, like I said, that
I like
shotguns actually. That was actually a good deal that I picked up from another service member over in Germany who basically didn't do the appropriate paperwork with the ATFE. So we got that one on a screaming deal.
It's a really nice shotgun, and I enjoy it. I really do, and it's a good looking shotgun as well.
So there'll be another one coming to you soon. It'll end up being the SKB 12-gauge over-under model.
I like those. I really do like a good double shotgun, whether it be side-by-side or over-under. I really enjoy it. A nice double. Matter of fact, I keep a double 12 next to my bed. It's an old, I think it's a Stevens 311 model that's been cut down. And it's a field grade gun, which means it doesn't actually throw the shells clear when you break it open. You got to pick them out, and that was so you pick them out and you put them in your pocket. But 2 shots, 2 triggers. I can't find anything wrong with that.
Yep. Well, that's good. Hey, Michael, looks like we're coming up on time.
We're getting close. I want to like to just say thank you to UCY, UCY.TV, the best radio out there. Thank you to Jules for giving us this wonderful platform that gives everybody a chance to say what's on their mind and pass on a little bit of education.
Certainly, and I want to say thanks to Jules. Thank Michael for having me on. I've really enjoyed the last couple of weeks we've been able to do this. And
Nick, you're a wonderful addition, and I'm glad you're here, man.
Well, like I said, thanks everybody for listening on chat and throwing your comments out there. It's interactive. Get what you want to get out there.
The interactive radio is just a gift, and keep it going. If you got a couple bucks, go buy something through Amazon. Use the UCY.TV link. Send a couple bucks our way. That'll give it, man.
That's it. And then use the box for whatever you buy after that. Use the box for a target.
That's right. Or use that box to store all the wonderful ammo that you're buying.
Yep. Michael, I want to give one shout out before we split. I want to give a shout out to my buddy Chris in Georgia. Good shooting with you over the summer, buddy.
Chris, take care when you guys are over there. Dog tacos and rice soup.
There you go. All right, folks. Have a good night, Mike.
Looks like we're getting there. This is Prepper Chicks Live After Dark. Thank you, folks. Everybody be good.